Come with me to a magical place where being labeled the pork queen is a compliment, where being nice is just a way of life, and where all leaders of the free world must pass through. Welcome to Iowa. Whether you're a current Iowan, an Iowa expat, or an Iowan at heart, this show is for you. This is the Iowa Podcast. Real Iowans, real talk, no drama. I'm Justin Brady, and today I'm joined by Jessica Dunker, President and CEO of the Iowa Restaurant Association. Jessica, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
So you obviously read the news, I read the news, and for anyone who was paying attention to Iowa restaurant news, last week, there was this article going around that Iowa was scaling back inspections and the sky was falling, essentially, is what was going on. So, and before we get to that, briefly, have you subscribed yet? Subscribing is free. I will never ask for your credit card information to subscribe to this show. And if you like what you're hearing, please consider giving the show 5 stars. That helps other people on the platform of your choice find it. You can also go to iowapodcast.com, enter your email address down there, and we will literally email you when a new interview is posted. So that's iowapodcast.com. Okay, Jessica. This is a tweet that I saw being passed around quite a bit. The state of Iowa is planning to dramatically scale back the routine inspection of restaurants and other food service establishments by making only one on-site inspection every 5 years. End of tweet. Is that accurate? That's where we'll start.
No, that is not accurate. In fact, the Department of Inspections and Appeals did put out that they would be scaling back one of their levels of inspection, but it's not restaurants. It's not the restaurants that consumers go into every day. They're conducted in places that they have very limited preparation of food. And an example I might give is a place that warms up pizza that's already been cooked. And they will do those things every 5 years, but your traditional restaurants, they're going to be, if they've got sushi, they're getting inspected every 6 months. Most restaurants making food from scratch are 12 months. And then some of the quick service restaurants that would have a lot of routine, like burgers and fries, they're probably every 18 months. But that it's accurate that that's a food service establishment. It is not accurate that restaurants will not be inspected that often. It's the biggest non-story we've had in a while.
So it's like anything in life. There was a lot of very important detail that was absolutely ignored in this story. And about the only accurate thing in it is that establishments selling food that's basically the only thing is some establishments selling food that's mostly prepackaged will be affected. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And, there's probably some vending machines in there, but honestly, from the standpoint of consumer safety with restaurants, and honestly, there's a couple of things about inspections that are really important for consumers to understand. Number one is that inspections are helpful, but what's really keeping you safe is that there is a certified food protection manager in every restaurant in the state of Iowa. It's required by law, and that is a national certification. Every restaurant has at least one person. Most are having one per shift. And that's actually much more important to have that and know that's in place than how often someone is coming in and inspecting a restaurant. The other thing that's important to note about inspections is that they're very educationally focused. And so when you read things about something that might be found in a restaurant that's a problem, they do write it down, but it's also immediately taken care of. And so, what's tough is when we have people really focusing on some of the issues that might be found in an inspection and people assume it's still going on. It isn't. If it's marked in an inspection, it's normally taken care of the same day. So, they are a good partner to the industry, very collaborative. We like working with them. They are helpful, not punitive, and we appreciate that.
And you're talking about the DIA there, correct?
The DIA, yep. In Iowa, restaurants are inspected by the Iowa Department of Inspections and Appeals.
Right. And so by the time something comes up in an inspection report, it's already been dealt with. It's not a concern anymore. So,
that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yep. Otherwise, they'd be closed. Right. I mean, if there's something they can't deal with or won't deal with, if there's any public health or public safety concern, they wouldn't be open. They wouldn't be allowed to be open.
So if something does pop up and it's not addressed, you can't eat there even if you wanted to.
Yeah. But that, the chances of that happening, honestly, are so far and few between. Like I said, the DIA is very good about coming in, helping identify anything, both proactively and reactively. They will go in. And another thing about inspections, I guess I should note that we think is very positive is that they're very complaint driven. And so they really do go in and follow up when somebody has a concern. And that's good, because if people aren't complaining or there hasn't been an issue and you stretch that to 12 or 18 months, chances are you're not going to find much. And again, it's very collaborative, very education focused, and they're taking care, they're triaging, I guess is the best way to put it.
Sure, yeah.
With the things that are most important to take care of.
So this is really good information. And one thing that was off my radar, and that is you mentioned a food inspector in every restaurant. I don't, what does that look like exactly? And is Iowa unique in this? Is this standard across the nation? What does this look like?
Right. And it's not a food inspector. It's a certified food protection manager is what it's called. And that is a national certification that is part of the federal and state food code. Iowa right now is a state that does require that in every establishment, one per establishment. And when I'm talking about that, it's restaurants, but it's also, every Casey's that's making pizza has somebody in there that is a certified food protection manager. Every quick service restaurant, like, a McDonald's or a Culver's, they have a certified food protection manager, as well as your traditional table service restaurants. And many, especially the table service restaurants, many of them always know that they have one per shift available and not just one per location, although one per location is all that is required.
Okay, got it. And so this is required, and
it is required. Yep, and it's a hard test. I've taken the test. It's there's a class and a book that you take. It's an ANSI certified exam that you take time. So it's not like you can just learn the questions on the test. You have to actually know the material, and it is one of the reasons that there are actually so few health concerns or complaints, because there's so much awareness in the state. Last year alone, 8,000 people were certified in certified food protection management in the state of Iowa.
Fascinating. Okay, so now is this just a national thing? Like every state does this?
Yes, every state does it. We are one of the primary teachers. There are several ways that you can get it done. The most common is a class called Serve Safe. And that is created by the National Restaurant Association in collaboration with some other groups. And we teach it in our office. We teach it the class once a week and do the certification exams. But it's also taught at Iowa State University Extension, so that it's all an easy way for people to physically get there all over the state. The course can also be taken online. And so for even the most remote areas, you can take the course online. And then they use something called Proctor U, which is you're observed via your computer as you take the exam. So it feels a little bit, as a grown-up like me, I think the hardest part of the exam was having to get a bubble sheet out. I haven't had to do that in a lot of years.
So it's a proactive approach instead of a reactive approach is what you're telling me.
Yeah, very much a proactive approach. And one of the things I tell people when they talk about concerns related to food safety is there are very few home kitchens that would pass an inspection from the Department of Inspections and Appeals. And people are like, well, how's that? My kitchen's so clean. It's so this. And I always ask, do you store or do you thaw meat above your vegetables, like above your salad?
Really?
And if you do, you would not pass inspection.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
So,
now, why is that? Because like the bacteria from the food can fall down or something?
There's always a concern that there would be something would drip down. And even if it's wrapped, In a restaurant, that would not be allowed. Also, do you date everything that you put saran wrap over and keep track of exactly when it should be tossed out, right? We date everything so that we know how long it can be kept. Do you know all of the temperatures that meat should be cooked to internally to ensure safety? I mean, I venture to say that most home kitchens, home cooks are not doing those things, and they're living. That's not like they're not making it through. But, restaurants are required because it's our business to go above and beyond. And so, again, that's one of the reasons we aren't normally bothered by inspectors coming in, because we know what we have to do. We're trained and certified in what we have to do. And at the end of the day, it's also what we want to do, right? We want people to eat safe, good, quality food.
Right, and just let's focus on the self-serving aspect of this, right? Like a restaurant's in business to make money and make a profit and grow, and having some food violations is that's an insane amount of risk to take on. Like if there's one case that gets out into the public, you're basically done. Like your restaurant's basically done for I can think of, I'm not going to name them, but I can think of restaurants who basically lost their entire business and revenue stream because of one stupid thing they did. Like, I think that's kind of the one other aspect to this story that's kind of left out of the discussion is if there aren't like government regulators standing over your shoulder 24 hours a day, all restaurant people are trying to screw over the consumer. And I'm like, the cost to them of not keeping things clean is absolutely insane. And all it takes is one person getting sick at your restaurant to file a complaint, and then you're done.
Yeah. In fact, data backs you up on that conjecture. They're about 85% decrease in business if you have a publicly known food safety, an illness, for example, that comes out of your restaurant. And many restaurants can't ever recover from that. You're totally right.
Yeah, no kidding. And restaurant owners know this. They're not idiots. You know what I mean? They're like, it's not like they're obviously in it to make a profit. You can't make a profit when you are losing 85% decrease in business. So there was, I do want to get into the specifics of the change. There was a change though, which is what sparked the less than accurate article, if I'm being generous. So that change was like basically pre-packed food, that the frequency of inspecting those is going to decrease, correct?
That's exactly right.
But why though? There's a reason behind why that's happening, and I'd like you to get into that a little bit.
Yeah, for one thing, they have everything based on risk level. And that is a very, very low risk level. And, inspections across the state take time. And so they're really emphasizing where they need time and where time will be best spent to protect consumers. One of the things we really appreciate, again, is that before you open, at whatever your risk level, even these places that are going to get inspections once every 5 years, you have to have a pre-open inspection. And so they're very proactive about getting in there and making sure that you have your 3-compartment sink, that you have a separate hand washing sink that is labeled appropriately, that that you have all of the things that you need to be in compliance from day one. So, everybody is starting out in compliance from day one because they can't open without that compliance inspection first. Then after that, you have the routine inspections. And again, this is where the very lowest risk is going, once every 5 years. And as you move up, it could be once every 36 months. And that would be more like a same day service kind of thing, maybe pizzas, those types of things. And then after that, when you really start looking at people doing what they call complex food preparation, where they heat, cool, reheat, make from scratch. They might have, like live fish at the retail level. Those things get at least every 12 to 18 months. And then the really high risk is normally every 6 months. And again, those are considered to be, like if somebody's making sushi, they check on them a lot, often. And then they also have the other place that they do inspections a lot more regularly are places where they're actually packaging food. So it might be a place that's making something to package and send. to make sure that those things are safe, in that transport, from that standpoint of how you transport it, how you package it and transport.
Obviously that's not being included because that wouldn't be considered a restaurant. Therefore, the inspections happening at these packaging facilities, that's not being discussed at all either, even though that does certainly play a factor, or even though that's a factor.
Right. And, when people hear the word food service, they often immediately associate it with restaurants. But the Department of Inspections and Appeals spends a lot of time in school cafeterias, in nursing home cafeterias, and hospital cafeterias, and, looking at food trucks. They look at everything. So food service is is a broad net that it casts. And it really is any place that you would be having someone either warm up food or create food and hand it to you. On
one of the articles, it mentioned the FDA suggests every 6 months. And so I'm assuming that that doesn't apply then to a low risk pre-packed food facility or pre-packed food convenience store selling crackers from Ritz. I'm assuming this is one of the challenges, is citing the FDA says food establishments should be inspected every 6 months isn't exactly accurate. That would only apply to those higher risk levels. Is that correct?
For those higher risk levels. And in Iowa, none of that has changed.
And
none of that has changed. They're doing exactly what they've always been doing. It's just, again, that really low level of risk. And, if you were to talk to the DIA about this, they really would tell you it's things like a Dollar General or a vending machine, or it's those kinds, or potentially maybe a tavern that takes frozen pizza and heats it up and serves it to pizza or to people with a beer. So it's really places that it's hard to mess up, and it's hard to make people sick. I will say though, if they get a complaint about anything, they'll be right in there. And you don't wait 5 years if there's a complaint. I'd be surprised if they wait 5 days.
Yeah. So what is that process like then? If someone does get sick and they, obviously don't go pointing fingers at an innocent restaurant, but if you're sick, someone listening to this is sick and they have a feeling, maybe a gut feeling it was the restaurant's fault or something, what is the process to go through? Because I think most people don't know how to approach that.
Right. So you go ahead and contact the Iowa Department of Inspections and Appeals, and they have an area on there that you can place a consumer concern. Now, what's interesting, again, about that is they don't just automatically decide that where you got sick.
Right.
Right. Right. And because I'll tell you, a lot of times people don't realize it's not like you normally, if you have a foodborne illness, you don't go home that night and get sick. A lot of times, it can be several days.
Yeah.
And so sometimes what they have found when they investigated is it wasn't the restaurant at all. It might very well have been the church potluck, places where folks are not thinking about temperature control and some of those things. So, they will investigate it, and they will track and see if multiple people are having the same complaint. And then they investigate if those multiple people all had the same dish. And, it takes, several people being linked back to a particular dish on a particular night at a particular restaurant to have that tied to a location.
Sure. And I should say, by the way, that tweet that I read to you earlier, I just checked, is still up, sadly. But the article, at least, has been silently edited. There is an update at the bottom saying we changed some stuff, but if you go on Wayback Machine, the original headline is this: eateries will be inspected every 5 years under new rule. That's it. That's the subheadline. Now, they have changed that since to some low-risk eateries may be inspected every 5 years under new rule. That is quite a change.
That is quite a change. And it also makes my quote in that same article make a lot more sense when I say I'm comfortable with it. Because I am
so you kind of got smeared a little bit too.
Yeah, yep, I did. I am comfortable with it, and it's, you know what, it comes with the job.
Yeah.
And, there was, that's just the way it goes. But the truth is that I am actually very comfortable with all of the schedules that they have, because I understand how rigorous the certified food protection manager training is and what that means and how that's implemented in restaurants. One of the things you might notice, and I always watch for this, even when you go to Subway and there's a 16-year-old kid there that is making every time they make a sandwich, they change their gloves. Every time, right? And that's because someone is a certified food protection manager, and it says if you are touching a cash register, right, take those things off and start fresh, right? So glove use is looked at very closely and studied very closely, how things are stored, what temperature things are kept at, how long you rotate food, how things are labeled and tagged, where they sit in a walk-in cooler, where they sit in dry storage, all of it. Those are all things that people, it's like so many things, you don't always know what you don't see. And that is what's happening behind the scenes in every restaurant in the state of Iowa, because it has to.
I mean, what it sounds like is that the way in which these systems are put in place is making it increasingly difficult to even have a violation. I mean, violations are certainly possible, but it's almost becoming difficult to do that. So,
for a lot of things, that would be absolutely true. And when you do have a violation that's found, it's usually easy to remedy it on the spot.
Right.
And that's normally what happens right there and then and there. Now, one of the things that is often cited in an inspection report is that you don't have a certified food protection manager on staff. And that doesn't mean you're in violation. It just means you have to, if you lose your certified food protection manager, and obviously, we've had a lot of shift in our industry of late in staffing. You do have 6 months to get a new one in place. So that doesn't even necessarily mean there's a violation. It just means that it's either in progress. And we get calls from the Department of Inspections and Appeals all the time asking if a certain restaurant has somebody signed up to take the class.
Oh, wow.
And and pretty much we always say yes. It's almost always that they have. So restaurants take this very seriously.
Yeah, and that's interesting. They have such a tight working relationship with you, because I imagine they don't really have to, but
no.
That's refreshing to hear that. But I want to move topics a little bit, because what kind of broke my heart a little bit seeing this, I saw this, and of course I immediately reached out to some restaurant friends, and I'm like, is there any validity to this? And a couple of them that we both know are like, no, this is a bunch of bunk. You need to get in touch with Jessica. And so obviously I appreciate you coming on short notice, but what broke my heart is that, here you guys have gone through this COVID stage, and there's some restaurants that sadly closed their doors because of being forced out of business because of the pandemic, because forced closures, because people were scared to go out, because everyone's routines were changed. And like, what we didn't need is kind of a hit piece like this. So what is the state of Iowa restaurants? Are they back to normal occupancy? Are they still lagging? Are they doing great? Can you give us that kind of perspective?
Yeah, I think that we should have great fear for our favorite restaurants. For the first time in the history of our industry, we have a 15% cost of goods increase. At the same time, we have a 15% cost of labor increase. Ugh. And you couple that with 8.5% inflation, and here's what happens. First of all, the average Iowa restaurant only has 16 days of cash on hand. So we don't have a lot of wiggle room.
Wow.
Second, with a 5% net profit, which is what we consider to be good, the average, and I stress this is average, the average Iowa restaurant has $97 a day in profit.
Oh my gosh.
And so when you are bid into the way you are, that's difficult. Almost half of restaurants are still not operating at capacity and likely won't be. 90% are operating without the workforce they need. So we are really struggling. And you go out and you say, but there's lots of people out. There's lots of people out. That's true. People are still coming through the doors, but they're ordering completely different. They're ordering water instead of a drink. They're sharing an entree. They're not ordering an appetizer. They're not having dessert. They're having one cocktail instead of two. And so what happens is table check sizes go down, but people still, want to hang around. So, it is a really difficult time for our industry. And that is true in Iowa, and it's true all over the country. But, when you look out and you think things are bustling, it's bustling with people, but it is not bustling with sales. And there are actually restaurants that have come to me and talked about, we have higher revenue than we've ever had, but we're making absolutely no profit.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
So,
well,
yeah,
why is that?
Tough.
Why are people decreasing the size of their overall check? Like, is that inflation?
That's a pocketbook issue. The last time that we saw this was in 2009 during the financial crisis, where, people like to go out. And so they go out and they may choose a different kind of restaurant that's costs less, or they'll modify their ordering habits and they will order less expensive items, or the most profitable items in our establishments are soft drinks and French fries. And so when people ask me, what can I do that can help a restaurant? I always say, order French fries, right? That's a profit maker wherever you are. Yeah, order French fries and get your Diet Coke or whatever drink it is that you want, because that's where so much of the margin is made up, because food costs have gotten so high.
French fries and drinks, basically.
Yep. French fries and drinks.
Which is like the number one thing my wife wants when we go out.
Well, there we go. Yep. You're not making it at home. So
she would be, it's exactly right. She would be happy just ordering French fries and drinks in most of these restaurants.
So
and
the restaurants
would
be happy to see her. Yeah, be happy to see her. So
what else though? Like, is it just a matter of increasing frequency? Should we have more parties at restaurants? Should we increase catering? What are things we can do to make sure our great restaurants don't go out of business? Yeah,
there's a couple of other things. Do not ever use a third-party delivery service.
Ooh.
That is one of the best things you can do to help your neighborhood restaurant. As a consumer, you know that you are charged for that third party to deliver your food. But restaurants that are in contract relationships with them, the best rate that I've seen is they pay 20% of your check goes to the third-party delivery service. So if you remember what I said previously about $97 a day and a 5% net profit, they are watching they're watching money walk out the door with third-party delivery services. So, carry out, not the same thing, right? Get in your car and come say hello and let us bring it to the curbside for you. And we really stressed that to people during COVID, and people really responded, which was nice, because the third-party delivery model, I think it will get figured out, but the way it operates today is not beneficial to restaurants from the standpoint of financial.
Yeah, and what's really sad about that is some of these organizations, some of these favorite restaurants that I've been going to, they almost seem to be prioritizing like the to-go things and the I don't want to name drop them, but like Uber Eats, DoorDash, all that stuff. Some restaurants almost seem to be prioritizing that, and they like have little waiting areas that are designated as pickup zones, which I'm just like, why are they doing that? Is it just because there's at least some cash coming in? They haven't done the math yet? What's that all about?
That would be because consumers want it.
Oh.
And so you have to look at third-party delivery kind of like you look at Groupon. Nobody makes any. When people found out that Groupon kept 50% of what you paid and required a 50% discount, and let me just give an example. When Groupon was just getting up and running, there was a restaurant in Des Moines that did $100 Groupon for $50.
Oh my!
And then they only got $25 from each Groupon, and they sold 1,000.
Oh my!
So tell me how you stay in business with that.
You don't.
with that.
Yeah, you don't. Wow.
So you have to think about how you work with these groups specifically. So, one of the things that we suggest is limit the menu, right? Limit what you can get on that delivery menu. Have it be stuff that's simple and easy to make. Have it be high profit items. As well. So because that is the reality. These, people want everything delivered these days. I think we can thank streaming services for that, right? If I can have my entertainment streamed, I want my food delivered too. And I will pay $9 for a craft beer, but I expect, my poke bowl or whatever to be $4. So, yes. It's a tough balancing act right now. And I do think that it will rectify itself. The solution has not happened yet, but because consumers like it, the industry will figure out how to make it profitable for everybody. It just isn't yet.
Yeah, and obviously tip your waiters and waitresses. That's kind of an obvious one, but I do feel, maybe I'm wrong on this, and maybe you have data on this, and for our last 30 seconds, have you seen tip percentages increase post-COVID for people trying to reward good service? Have you seen that, or is that just in my mind?
I think that's just in your mind.
That's sad.
Seen two things. Yeah, two things. One is that people were really generous during COVID. And now everybody is suffering from inflation. And so they have to decide themselves how they spend. The other thing that I've seen restaurants doing, and I just saw this all over Miami, is that they will put a service charge on your bill. And if it's a service charge, they can split that service charge among all of the staff, as long as the staff is making minimum wage, including the back of the house, the cooks. And so when they give you your credit card statement, they give you a opportunity to tip 3, 5, or 7%, or 5, 7, or 10%. And it's that additional percentage that goes to the server above and beyond the service charge that was charged and gets divided between everybody. So I do see that as something that we will probably start seeing in more places all across the state.
Yeah,
the other thing is pay cash, because credit card fees are, for many restaurants, are second only to payroll, then food cost, and then credit card fees, and then mortgage or rent comes after that.
Wow, that's crazy. That's good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really good information. I appreciate you giving us the current outlook of Iowa restaurants, reminding us to go support our favorite restaurants, and also for busting this idiotic myth that Iowa restaurants were suddenly going to be poisoning us all. How stupid was that? Jessica Dunker, President and CEO of the Iowa Restaurant Association. If people want to reach out to you and they want to get the accurate information, where should they go to do that?
Yep, you can go to our website, restaurantiowa.com, or you can always call our office. We're also on Facebook and Twitter, so go up and follow us. But and we are always happy to help.
Yeah, there's this really cool invention called the phone, and if you dial a code, a long bunch of code, and if you actually dial that code and hit the green send button, someone on the other side picks up, and then you can literally ask them questions. It's revolutionary technology. Jessica Dunker, thank you so much for coming on the Iowa podcast. I appreciate it.
Appreciate being there. Thank you.
And to my fellow Iowans, Iowa expats, and Iowans at heart, thanks for listening and subscribing to the Iowa Podcast.